Welcome back to another video. I am April Williams, a spiritual mindset life coach. I'm a motivational speaker and I'm a podcaster. So today, y'all, I wanted to come on here and share with y'all something. And it's like, we have to know that we have to constantly feed our faith. Because if we're not feeding our faith, then that's when the fears begin to grow. So when you think about feeding your faith, it's like, okay, you have to constantly be feeding your faith, meaning feeding your spirit good things, powerful things, positive things. It's like, let's say you listen to gospel. Okay, that's one way to feed your spirit, to feed your faith. But we also have to make sure we praying, we reading, we doing all these other things because we have to constantly feed our faith. Like it has to be a 24/7 type of thing. Like for me, now I feed my faith so much to where if I'm not, reading, I'm hearing something. I'm hearing motivational speakers. I'm hearing, gospel music. I'm hearing worship. I'm hearing all these things that's constantly feeding my faith. And as I feed my faith more and more and more, I'm blocking out room for that fear to grow. So let's say you like to watch the news and okay, I tell my mama this all the time, like ain't nothing wrong with watching the news. I don't watch it. I stopped watching it months ago. But okay, some people have kids and they want to know what's going on in the world. So if you watch the news, I feel like, okay, if you watch it once a day, that's enough. Let's say you watch it around the clock. You watch it 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2, 6, whatever scheduled times it come on. You watching the news 24/7. And when you think about that, think about how much good is on the news compared to how much bad is on the news. It's always what's going on, shooting, killing, all this different stuff that's going on in the world. We know that these things happen. So it's like, okay, it's probably 90% bad, 10% good. So look at how much fear is over faith. There's 90% fear and 10% faith. So like I said, we have to just begin to turn these things off. That's not feeding our faith. Watching the news 24/7, getting bad news on top of bad news on top of bad news, that makes room for your fears to grow. Just like I said, if you watch the news and you watch it one time a day, that's enough. If you go on the news app, that's enough. Like you don't have to. That I don't know. I will never understand it. I never got into that, and I know it's a reason why. So, like I say, you have to be constantly feeding your faith, whether you praying, reading, fasting. And the thing about fasting isn't just from food. Like I did a social media fast for months, for like 3-4 months. I wasn't on social media, so it's like it's more than just food. You can fast from social media, people, Netflix. Watching movies all the time. It's like whatever you're denying the flesh of, you're fasting from it. You say, okay, I'm not going to eat fast food for 3 months. Okay, your body wants fast food. Your body likes fast food, but you say, okay, I'm not going to eat fast food for 3 months. You're denying the body. You're denying the flesh of what it wants. If you love to watch Netflix and you say, okay, I'm not going to watch Netflix for 4 months or for 3 months, I'm going to focus on my goals. Okay, you're denying the flesh of what it wants. Your flesh loves to sit there and watch Netflix, but you say, okay, I'm not going to watch it because I want to focus on my goals. You're fasting from that. Whatever you're denying the body, the flesh of, you're fasting from it. So like I say, fasting is more than just food. You can fast from social media, people, TV, Netflix, all these different things that kind of becomes a distraction. Like I say, nothing wrong with doing all these things. I watch Netflix sometimes, but I can make sure that I'm working more than I'm doing those other things. Those are like other hobbies that, I do every once in a while. If I'm not constantly feeding my faith, if I'm not on a podcast, listening to a podcast, reading on YouTube, making videos, watching videos, it's like that's where the purpose comes from. When you're working in your purpose, when you're serving in your purpose, it keeps you so busy and consumed to where you don't even have much time to do those other things. You don't even have a lot of time to watch Netflix. You don't have a lot of time to, be on social media and all this different stuff unless you're doing something that's purpose-wise. So like I said, we have to be making sure we're feeding our faith. So let's say you're not feeding your faith. And then next thing you know, you feel like you're depressed. You hear yourself and you catch yourself saying things like, oh, I think I'm depressed. And all these different things. We have to know if we're not feeding our faith, that's when the enemy comes in like a flood. That's where anxiety comes from. That's where depression comes from. That's where worry, stress, struggle, strain, that's where all these different things come from if we're not feeding our faith. Because if you're not feeding your faith, that's when the fears begin to grow. So we have to constantly make sure we're feeding our faith. Whether you reading the word, hearing the word, listening to videos, worship music, podcasts, motivational stuff. You know, if you want to start a business, you watching videos that's going to help you start a business. If you're thinking about going to school for a certain thing, you reading up on that. Like, it's about feeding our faith. Whatever area, whatever you're trying to do, you have to focus on that. You have to constantly feed your faith every day. And most importantly, we have to feed our faith with the word of God. In the Bible, Romans chapter 10, verse 17 says, so faith comes from hearing, that is, hearing the good news about Christ. And I'm reading from the NLT version. And I'm going to read it again. So faith comes from hearing, that is, hearing the good news about Christ. So we have to constantly, like I say, be feeding our faith with good things, positive things, with the word, whether you're reading the word for yourself, whether you're listening to the audio Bible, whether you're watching a video where someone is talking about the word, someone is talking about the things of God. All this is, things that's going to help you move into a positive direction. That's what feeding your faith is. Because if you're not feeding your faith, like I say, the fears will grow. That's where anxiety comes from. That's where depression comes from. And you could be doing good. You could be doing fine. And one day you wake up and you say, I feel depressed. And if you do that, I challenge you to think about what you haven't been doing. Have you been praying? Have you been reading? Have you been fasting? Have you been worshiping? Have you been spending time with God? So when you ask yourself these things, if the answer is no, that's where that anxiety is coming from. That's where, you saying you feel like you're depressed. A lot of times that's where those things are coming from. Because if we're not feeding our faith, that's when the fears will grow. So we have to constantly feed our faith. Like I said, it comes by hearing and hearing and hearing. So make sure you're feeding your faith. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Y'all be blessed, and we'll talk soon.